as you know, I got a knock at the door at my place of work, and PC Gull turned up from Humberside Police, who came to check my thinking because apparently I'd been tweeting things that somebody somewhere took exception to. Now, what I'd been tweeting, you and I might find quite innocuous. I'd said things like, if Caitlyn Jenner has always been a woman, which at the time Caitlyn Jenner was claiming, who won the 1976 men's decathlon at the Olympics? And I said that Sheffield women know the difference between lads and lasses. And I famously retweeted somebody else's fairly cutting piece of feminist doggerel. They called it a limerick, but it wasn't a limerick. And this was the bit that got me to national and international attention, because it was portrayed that the police were coming down on me for reposting a limerick. Now,
let me just jump in there, because I want to clarify one point for people who are listening. When the police contacted you, they actually said to you, "We're here to check your thinking." That's not you exaggerating. That's not you making this story sound a little bit more sinister than it is. They actually said that to you.
Yeah, word for word. I said, I'm an ex police officer myself, although it's a long time ago since I was a policeman. But I do take the reportage of words quite seriously. And I did that trick that we were always told in the police, to make a record of what was said immediately, straight away. And what was said to me was so astonishing that I had to make a record. I did. I made a record straight away. And that's what he said. I said, let me get this straight. You're saying to me that I said, have I committed a criminal offence? And he said, no. I said, so why are you here then? And he said, I'm here to check your thinking. And word for word, that's what he said. And I said, have you any idea what that makes you? And he had no idea. I said, well, I reminded him of George Orwell, and said George Orwell, the 1984 was a dystopian novel. It wasn't a police how-to manual. The reference was entirely lost on him. He then told me that unless he intervened in my non-criminal tweets, that my tweeting would escalate from non-criminality to criminality. But when I asked him what criminality he had in mind, he told me the murder of Stephen Lawrence. So I thought that's quite a leap, going from retweeting somebody else's so-called limerick to the murder of Stephen Lawrence. That is quite something. And this is when I uncovered this method of recording called the non-crime hate instant recording. Now, it turned out there were around about 200,000 of these non-crime hate incidents recorded since 2014. No trial, no jury, no charge, no anything. They were recorded purely on the basis of somebody else's perception. If somebody perceived that you were being hateful against one of the 5 monitored strands, so if I can remember them all, that's race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, and disability. If somebody perceives anything that you say or do as being motivated by hostility towards one of those 5 monitored strands, then it was recordable as a non-crime hate incident. Now, what is particularly sinister about the non-crime hate incident is this. One, you know that you are on a police database of hate. That's uncomfortable for anybody who sees themselves as a conforming, compliant, non-criminal citizen. But even worse than that, the police argued that a non-crime hate incident should be disclosable on an enhanced DBS check. So if I was to apply for a job working with youth, or in a university, or
working for my charity,
or your charity, then it was entirely down to the chief constable whether or not they would disclose this to the place that I applied for a job. Now, that has to be wrong. It has to be wrong. So I took the police all the way through the courts. I took Humberside Police to the High Court, because they were the ones that approached me. Their defence was that they were following the national guidance set out by the College of Policing. So I took the College of Policing to the High Court as well. Now, in the first instance, in I think it was
Let me
late
just quickly jump in.
2019.
Let me quickly jump in. This is why you're a hero to me. Is because you didn't have to do any of this. If you'd have got a non-crime hate incident on your record, at your stage in life now, looking at retirement, it wouldn't have mattered one fig, one way or the other. You then decided, I'm not having this for my country and for my fellow citizens, and I'm going to take on the establishment. That is something the vast majority of people would never do. Most people would never fight back. The small percentage who do fight back only fight back because it's in their interest. You're that tiny, tiny, tiny handful of people in the world who are fighting back because it doesn't even affect you. You're doing it because it affects your country and your fellow citizens. That's why I admire you.
Well, thank you. And it is true. I could have chosen to ignore it. In fact, in one of the very early TV interviews that I did, I was asked, he said, most people would simply take it on the chin, Harry. Why not you? And I said, well, one, I'm not most people. And two, why should any of us take on the chin a punch from the police when we've done nothing wrong? Why? It makes no sense to me. Now, I'm from that grand tradition of people who believe in fighting for the underdog and for doing the right thing, almost irrespective of cost. If you think back to the Second World War, Nick, Germany weren't interested in us. Hitler was he quite liked the royal family. He quite liked England. We weren't quite Aryans, but we weren't far off.
He wanted the German version of the British Empire.
Yeah, exactly. He admired us. We could have stayed right out of it. And we didn't enter the Second World War because our life was threatened. We entered the Second World War because it was the right thing to do. And the quality of life was threatened. Now, when all those brave young men and women chose to sign up and go and fight, they did so not with the risk of losing their reputation or their house, as I was. They run the very real risk of losing their life, a leg, an eye, whatever. So for me to have done nothing in my mind, would have been to have let down all those true heroes of previous wars, the Second World War in particular, who went on principle in order to maintain our British common law values of freedom.